how you present, communicate, and set up with your executive team so you can be a world-class CISO in 2026, have a seat at the table, be respected, and be invited to every board meeting. That's the ultimate, because if you can go in and you're meeting with, you're sitting with, you're talking with, and you're attending the board meetings with all your other chief officers, your CEO, COO, CFO, and chief legal counsel, how can you not be successful?
Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO.
Welcome, my friends. You know what time it is. It is time to rock and roll. Let's go. Buckle up. It is time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house. Now, I don't know about you, but it is crazy that we are finishing up 2025. First and foremost, I just want to wish everybody a happy holidays. And depending on whether you catch another episode or not, a happy new year. You know, everyone celebrates different holidays and truly respect that. So just some of you might be finishing holidays, some of you might be starting, and some of you might be right in the middle because this actually drops on December 25th. So happy holidays. And for those of you that are celebrating it, a Merry Christmas if you're actually listening to it on the 25th. As you know, I pre-record. So on the 25th, I'll be with my family, putting a priority there, which that's probably the first thing I want to emphasize is being a world-class CISO heading into 2026. To me, the first thing you need to focus on is your health. Think of it this way. We often spend more time, energy, and effort maintaining our cars than we do maintaining our health. Now, the reality is this. We are the vehicle for getting through life. And here's the crazy part. You only get one car, right? You only get one vehicle, right? This body is all you get, right? You can't go in like an automobile and replace it every 2 to 3 years, every 4 to 5 years. You might have 15, 20 cars in your lifetime, but you only have one body, right? So let's make sure we take care of that. Because this year, at least for me, was one of those years that was sort of a bittersweet, where I had to say goodbye to a lot of good friends. And it's sort of one of those crazy parts in life where this year I actually had more funerals than I did weddings or baby showers. Right? And that was probably sort of a first for me, right? Where you could argue that sometimes, when life is over, it's celebrating a life. But unfortunately, sometimes if it's illnesses that cut lives short, you still appreciate the value you had with them, but you just wonder, if you just had a little more time. So it's one of those where that just sort of really hit me that many of us push ourselves so hard. We go in and so focused, and I was guilty of this to some matter, so focused on the purpose, my purpose, securing cyberspace, that I'm just doing things where I'm taking red eyes to get to the next talk. I'm not eating healthy, I'm rushing, I'm not hydrating, I'm not sleeping because it's all about that mission. But here's the reality. If you're not healthy in sleep, hydration, eating, and exercise are probably the 4 most important things for health. We don't go in and get those right, we're not going to be around as long as we need to be. So enough said, but just give a little thought on what are some things you can do to sort of optimize your health. How is your sleep optimized? Is your eating optimized? Is your health optimized? And is your exercise routine optimized? And what's one change you can do in each of those 4 areas? You make one change in each of those 4 areas, and by the end of 2026, you'll be unrecognizable. Second, if you have stress around family, kids, significant others, and friends, it's going to drain you. It's going to limit your capacity. On the other hand, If you have an amazing support network that's supporting you, encouraging you, lifting up and energizing you, and you're in the middle of the day and you're a little down and you get a message, hey, thinking about you, I believe in you, I know you can do this. I mean, what can I do to help or assist you? Boom, that's like going to the gas station and filling up, or going, your Tesla owners, right, going and getting a recharge, right, so you can go another couple 100 miles. So to me, especially this time of year, it's hard for me, but I know how important it is. Take a little time, slow down, spend some time with friends, family, and loved ones, and just sort of re-energize them, re-energize you. And then you're starting the year with a support network that actually helps you and lifts you up and doesn't drain you. And then once again, areas to focus on. What's one thing you can do to go in and change or increase the value of relationships with your significant other, with your children, you don't have children, family members, with friends, and with peer groups. I'm a big fan that having friends is great, but having a peer group that you meet either virtually or in person periodically to be held accountable is also very valuable. So sort of notice there's 4 areas and there's sort of these 4 things in each one. So just spend a little time on what is one thing you can do going into 2026 to increase your relationship with your significant other. What's one thing you could do to increase the relationship with friends or family? With kids or family. What's one thing you could do to increase the relationship with friends? And if you're not part of a peer group, what's a peer group that you can join to be held accountable to a higher level? Then with that, then we can go in and look at being a world-class CISO. Now we have the foundation. We have a solid foundation of health, support, and love. And now going in and focusing on giving 100% to being a world-class CISO. Now that all of a sudden makes sense. But what are the areas that world-class CISOs are focusing in on in 2026? And this one is only 3. There's really 3 significant things that happened and occurred in 2026 that change the entire cyber landscape. It changes the view, and I use them as entry points to get the attention of the executives. Because the reality is, stay tuned, I will tell you before the end what the real focus area is. But if you begin with that, everyone will roll their eyes. If you begin with that, you won't get attention. So we have to go in and real newsworthy stories, real applicable references that they can recognize and understand is where you start. And what I'm going to go through on this is basically how you present, communicate, and set up with your executive team so you can be a world-class CISO in 2026, have a seat at the table, be respected, and be invited to every board meeting. That's the ultimate, because if you can go in and you're meeting with, you're sitting with, you're talking with, and you're attending the board meetings with all your other chief officers, your CEO, COO, CFO, and chief legal counsel, how can you not be successful? How can you not achieve? Because at that point, you have the respect, the focus, and the support, which then means you have the clear plan, and then you can focus on the execution, not trying to go in and convince people what should or should not be done. So let's start with how you get the attention. The way I get attention, I've started this briefing, is I've changed the triangle. And I actually say that. The old triangle in cybersecurity has 3 sides: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We know that, old news, that's not really going to move the needle. The new triangle has data protection in the center, and then the 3 sides of the triangle are AI, cloud, and ransomware. Now, once again, all 3 of these terms are not new terms. Right? So they're going to be like, of course, it's going to be AI. Of course, it's going to be cloud. But no. Let's look at what happened. And let's look at the focus and shift that must be made in each of those 3 areas. If we go in and we start with AI. AI hit us like a tsunami. Tsunamis don't give a lot of notice. It's not like other weather conditions where you can predict a snowstorm coming, where they say, oh, it looks like we're going to get a big blizzard 4 or 5 days. Make sure you go to the store and get ready, or even hurricanes. Tsunamis hit you quick, very fast, little time to react, and very devastating. And to me, that's what AI did. AI sort of hit us by storm. Now, once again, we've been tracking this. I sort of knew it was happening, but a lot of people, oh, AI is here. And to me, the fundamental flaw in AI is a misunderstanding. AI is not a replacement for humans. There is no way a computer can replace a human. And you have to go in and get agreement on this. Do we all agree that computers cannot replace humans? And if people don't agree, let's go down. Okay, do computers have a heart? Do they actually have a brain? Do they actually have creative thought? No. Can they have emotions? No. Do they have 5 senses? Most of our interpretation of the world around us comes from our 5 senses. What we see, what we smell, what we taste, what we hear, and what we can touch. Computers don't have any of those. They don't have eyes. They don't have ears. They don't have noses, right? I mean, we could go on. So the point is, we need to get everyone to convince and understand of looking at this rationally, that AI helps and augments humans. They do not replace humans. The only possible way that AI can replace a human is if we demoralize and degrade humans, because we are so much more powerful. I will tell you right now, I will never, ever be replaced by a computer. Now, I have multiple AI agents that work on my behalf. I am embracing and using AI on a regular basis, but it's to make me better, smarter, faster, and quicker. It's not to replace me, because it can't do this right here, this excitement, this energy, right? Connecting with you. There is no way a computer could do this. Yes, you could go in and give it a script and it can generate a video. But I will tell you right now, if you look at the video of an authentic human connecting and caring with their audience and an AI generated video, they're not even close. They're not even close, my friends. So these people out there that are going, oh, replace it. I'm like, you've lost your mind. Right? They are augmentation, not replacement. And this is where you have to go in and decide who you want to work for and where you want to make a difference. I tend to be very bold and direct. I don't hold punches. These are my opinions and only my opinions. But in my opinion, any executive that makes a similar statement to this, that AI is going to replace 30% of the workforce in the next 3 years, is ill-informed, is setting up their company for failure, and never, ever took a motivation or leadership class. So let me ask you a question. If somebody comes up and says, you're going to be replaced in 2 to 3 years with a computer, how motivated do you feel? How committed are you to come in early and stay late? How much are you feeling loved and supportive? Or are you just going to go and do the minimal, try to look for another job, or just basically pull a paycheck until they fire you and not really care? We sit there and wonder why people do not want to come back into the office, why people are not motivated, why people are not working hard. And then you have leadership saying, because we're going to replace you with something inferior to you. It's absurd. It doesn't make any sense. So you got to go in and convince executives it's a tool to enhance, but not to replace, because then we use it differently and give it access to different things. Right now, AI is given unfettered access to our intellectual property, our trade secrets, and our critical confidential data with no restrictions, controls, or access methods and leaking that out to the internet. To me, having AI on your employees' systems is far more dangerous than having TikTok. But this is what happens when we, as chief information security officers, cybersecurity professionals, are not stepping up and educating people. In reality, TikTok is not that big a threat compared to AI. TikTok does not have unrestricted access to all your data. It cannot go in and make up false information. It cannot go in and leak that information. TikTok only has access to what you give it. You shoot a video, it has it. You don't shoot a video, it doesn't. AI has access to all your data and all your information because we're giving it to it. When you're using AI models, did you go in and set up security? Did you go in and set up access control and restrict? No, we're just using it. And when you go in and say it this way, all of a sudden an executive's eyes going, wow, this is problematic. We go in to many of our clients, and the way we get attention to get permission to do this is we go in and we do what we call targeted AI, or some people call it AI pen testing, where we'll go into a company and with their permission and authorization, we'll start asking very specific questions about the company and the executives. And we get back proprietary, confidential, and even in some cases trade secrets. And their eyes are like, how did you get that? Because you don't realize that AI is using your data to train the other LMs to make them smarter, better, and faster. Then the other big risk with AI is, have you ever asked AI a question and it said, I don't know the answer? Or it actually didn't answer the question? No. So what does it do? It does what kids do. It makes it up. It's what we call an AI hallucination, which is a real thing. If it doesn't know the answer, it will just make up data, and then that false data, half-truths, then it gets trained on. So now you're using AI to make business decisions on false, inaccurate, or made-up information, which just think of the impact that could have on your organization. That's why AI models now have to come out so quick. You see these new AI models being released every sort of 4 to 6 weeks, and the reason is this. AI models are their smartest and most accurate on the day they're released. Every day they're used, because they're being fed inaccurate, false information and being retrained, they become dumber and dumber and less accurate. Yet, we're relying on these tools for business decision? Crazy. Now, if I was president for the day, king for a day, or CEO of a day, and there was no other concerns, I would basically go in and say, we are getting less value and more risk. Remember our rule with cyber. Rule with cyber is real simple. It's never yes or no. It's asking 3 questions. What is the value or benefit of using it? What is the risk or exposure? And is the value or benefit worth the risk? I would argue in most organizations, if you really list the value, it's pretty small. If you list the risk, it's pretty high. And if you truly, honestly ask yourself, is this value worth the risk? 9 times out of 10, you will say no. So based on that analysis, the real solution is stop the use of AI, just like we did with TikTok. You're like, we can't ban AI. I didn't think we could ban TikTok, but we did. Right? So we ban AI for 6 months until we figure it out. That puts pressure on using it, setting it up correctly, and making sure the right tools get developed. Because guess what? Functionality leads in cybersecurity always follows. However, I'm a practical practitioner, and I know just because of the false perceptions out there, regardless of the analysis, regardless of the logic, if I walk into a company and say, you have to stop the use of all AI and ban it like TikTok for 6 months, they'll put on the straitjacket and send me to the crazy house. Right? They're just not going to go down there. So our job is, okay, if we can't stop the train, how can we start to slow it down and restrict its usage? So what if we go in and we present this case but say, okay, let's work with the different teams. What are 3 use cases where the value of using AI exceeds the risk or exposure? Let's say you can use it for these 3 purposes and no others. So now we're giving them avenues to use it, but in a controlled manner, not in an unrestricted manner. Because AI is way too dangerous, way too misunderstood for it to be deployed and used the way it is right now. Then there's also a huge silver lining. Probably some of the best, most promising use cases for AI is in the area of defense. One of our rules in cybersecurity is if the offense is using it to cause harm, why don't we use it to stop them from causing harm? AI has made cyber attacks better, quicker, faster, and increase the probability of success. What if we use it to detect and take down the adversary? Now, we all know if we work in cybersecurity, one of the key mottos I came up with in the late 90s that's now sort of caught on as a buzzword, which is amazing, is prevention is ideal, but detection is a must. We are right now doing pretty good with prevention. Yeah, could we tune it a little, enhance? The problem where we're suffering is detection. Some organizations are, but some organizations are not doing a great job with detecting and responding in a timely manner. Now, the good news is detecting attacks on large-scale networks is fairly straightforward. The way you do it is you look for pivot points and lateral movement. If we're talking a traditional large-scale attack against an entire enterprise, what they do is they go in and they break into a system and set up a pivot point. Then they scan, analyze, find, and connect to the next system, set up a pivot point. And then they repeat that process over and over again. That process of pivot point discovering, scanning, analyzing, exploiting, breaking in, and uploading is very, very traffic intensive. It's very, very visible if you're looking at those traffic flows. Here's the problem though. If you look at a traditional network and there's hundreds of servers that could all communicate with each other, and you do a fully connected network of every possible connection between every other possible connection, you then build a normality model. What's the normal traffic flow, bandwidth, and packets that are going between every single server? Server A to server B, server B to server C, server A to server C, every possible combination. If you build that baseline, I can almost guarantee that when the attacker breaks in, sets up pivot points, and starts doing lateral movement, those will drastically change. There will be a noticeable increase in multiple connections, which allows you to detect that attack before it gets to your critical data. Now, the issue is with humans, it's very manually intensive to do all that analysis. We've done this study, we've done the math and the correlation on it, and on a medium-sized company to go in and manually do all that analysis and correlation would take about 800 people. Now, you want to talk about having them put you in a straitjacket and taking you to the crazy house, walk into the next board meeting and say, I need an increase in headcount of 800 people. Never going to happen, right? They're going to look at you like you've lost your mind, and you probably did. They were getting an increase of 2 people is impossible, let alone 800. So the problem we've had for the longest time is we've had a solution, but no way to implement it until now. I can't hire 800 people, but I don't need people. This is a redundant, repeatable task that doesn't require the amazing capacity of a human brain. It just needs a computer that can be programmed. I can deploy 800 AI agents pretty quick, pretty fast, pretty cheap. We've done it. We've gone into mid-sized clients and within 4 to 6 weeks have deployed 800 agents that are monitoring, tracking, and catching attacks. This is like supercharging your cybersecurity defense program because we're now going in and combining analysis, detection, and threat hunting. We're now detecting, but we're hunting threats in real time, catching attackers really quick. And now we're harnessing and using AI the way it should be, which is a tool to enhance humans, making us more powerful, not replacing us in any way, shape, or form. So that's a great area where AI can really go in and supercharge our environment. So educating and awareness around the dangers, the risks, and the benefits of AI. Second, cloud. Now you sit there and go, Eric, cloud's been around for a while, yes, but something significant happened in fourth quarter of 2025. AWS, a portion of it, pretty significant portion that impacted over 100 companies, went down for over 10 hours. And about a week later, Microsoft went down for a similar amount of time. Now, I'm not into conspiracy theory, not into pointing fingers, but I am here to be honest with my opinion. They don't accidentally go down. AWS and Microsoft have brilliant people, well-trained engineers, and there's no way that AWS, one of their Northern Virginia data centers, went dark for 10 hours because of a misconfigured load balancer for DNS. DNS is one of the most fundamental principles of the internet, have been around and stable. Resolving domain names to IP addresses and load balancers is very, very mature. If that is all that would happen, they would have failed over to another data center for DNS and load balancing, and they would have been up and running in 15 to 20 minutes. You don't go down for 10 hours because of that. You go down for 10 hours if somebody is targeting you, identifying and using that as a dry run. If I'm going to rob a bank, what do? I scope out the joint, I find vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and I see how long it takes the police to arrive. That looks almost identical to what happened here. They found some vulnerabilities and tested it, and then they wanted to see how long would it take for them to be able to respond and recover. Now they have accurate data on vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and response time. And the fact that both of them, two of the largest providers, went down within a week period, to me, my friends, is not a coincidence. Now, I could sit here and we can debate conspiracy theory, but let's focus on facts. The facts is this. In January 2025, so about a year ago, if I looked at most of my clients' 5-year plans, it was to migrate all data and all systems to the cloud. It was basically to get out of the on-prem colo data center business and have everything fully running in the cloud, because it was assumed that the cloud was reliable and impenetrable. So going to the cloud was your safest option for redundancy and availability. However, that all proved to be false. Customers went down. Large amounts of money was lost. And now I'll tell you, December and moving into January of 2026, executives are talking about, we need a hybrid solution. We can't put all of our data in the cloud. We have to go in and have some on-prem systems. We have to have some local control of our information, some local control of our data, because the 5-year plan we had is more broken than we thought. And here's the reality. I don't think anybody believes that what happened with AWS or Microsoft were one-offs. We're going to see this happening more and more and more as we go into 2026, which now means we have to focus on where is our critical data and how are we protecting it and securing it. Notice the center of the triangle, data protection. And this is going to have to be, because I'm getting low on time, a 2-part series. So I want to give you the endpoint, and then on the next one, I'll talk a little bit more about cloud, wrap that up, and talk about significant things that happened with ransomware. But the issue is this. CISOs that win in 2026 focus on what is your critical data, where is it located, and how are you protecting it? And everyone goes, oh, Eric, that's so old school. The problem is nobody has that list. Because I'll tell you right now, if we had an accurate list of what our critical data was, what the impact of the organization is and where it's located, we would not be using AI the way it is, and we would not have had the issues we did with the cloud. So clearly, we are not focusing on the foundational fundamental principle of cyber, which is your critical data. Remember, cybersecurity is what is the risk of your critical data being disclosed, altered, or denied access, and knowing and understanding what your critical data is and where it's located is foundational to an effective security program. Give that some thought. Think about what your critical data is, where it's located, and what it would take to come up with that comprehensive list and impact to the organization. And then join me next week for part 2, where I finish up talking about cloud, talking about data, and most importantly, talking about significant events that happened in ransomware. Have an amazing week. Have an amazing holiday. Have an amazing New Year's if you don't listen to me before then. And stay tuned for part 2 of this amazing series.